let's go and quickly deploy the NetBackup plugin into vRealize Orchestrator. I've already extracted the files. They're in the standard VRO package format. So within VMware vRealize Orchestrator, let's go to the Packages tab and then click on the Import Package. It's the first button up top. Click on that. It opens up the file system browser, and here's the package file that we downloaded. Let's click Open, and it begins processing the file. I'm going to click Import over here. This is because I had already downloaded the plugin on the system before, so all these elements come unchecked. Let's select all, and then import again, so it'll override and import them back in. Once all these elements are pulled in, we'll go take a look at them. They'll create folders under Actions and Workflows and Configuration and Resources tabs. So first off, let's go to the left tab over here, click on Workflows, and let's browse some of the workflows. So under NetBackup, a folder, you'll see Workflows, and under Workflows, VMware, select that, and under VMware, here's the NetBackup workflows that we just pulled in. They allow you to back up and restore agentless file restores, both to the original host as well as an alternate host. We also have another folder which allows you to back up and restore the VM in its entirety as well. Now, let's go over to the Actions tab. These are all the action elements that got imported. There's a list of them. Next, let's go to the Configuration tab and take a look at there. So, under Library, we'll see the NetBackup folder, followed by the mappings and the master servers. The master server folder has a template master. This template is what we will duplicate to create additional master servers in the configuration. The mappings files is where we will associate them to the vCenters. So, without further ado, let's go and configure a master server. So plugin configuration really breaks down into two tasks. One is adding the NetBackup master server and the vCenter servers into the configuration tab of the plugin. The second involves running a couple of workflows that set up a mapping between these two entities. We have a couple of decisions to make. First one, we need to identify a username that has administrator level privileges within the NetBackup application. The second is choosing the authentication method. You can use the operating system username and password, or you can use an API key. I would recommend using the API key. So now, with that out of the way, let's go back to our template master. So let's go ahead and define the master server entry in the plugin. So right-click, duplicate element, and let's go ahead and change the name of the master server here. There we go. Click Submit. And next, here's our entry. We're going to go to the Workflows tab next, and under Workflows, Library, go down to NetBackup, and the Configuration folder. So here we have some configuration workflows. We're going to choose the Configure Master Server workflow, and then let's highlight that and click on the play button. This will begin our workflow configuration step. Now we have some questions. So here's the master server name and a couple of questions. What's the version of the master server? And also, do we wish to use the API key or password-based authentication? So I'm going to go ahead and choose no for the 812. I'm using a newer master server. And then for API, I'm going to go and choose yes. So the username would be someone who has administrator privileges within NetBackup. And for API key, that'll be something we generate out of the web UI in NetBackup. The endpoint URL needs to be updated to reflect the master server name. So let's go do that and click Next. this prompt is asking us, hey, do we want to overwrite the configuration if it already exists? Say yes and submit. And this will run the workflow. When you see the checkbox green check appear on the left, we know that our workflow has completed. On the Logs tab is typically where you'd find any diagnostic information that helps you troubleshoot. So let's go and now configure the VMware assets. So to do this, we'll go back into the configuration section, and within there, under Library, NetBackup, we have Mappings folder and VMware and AWS, a couple of choices. For the type of asset, whether it's VMware or AWS, we would go and create a subfolder designating that resource. This Mappings section in the configuration contains rules for the asset attributes to determine the master server that we would link them with. So under VMware, we're going to go ahead and create a folder. So highlight VMware, right click on that, and we are going to choose new folder. Over here, we'll go and punch in the vCenter. So I'm going to use an IP address. You can also use a host name. So let's punch in the IP address and click OK. Now that we have this created, let's go and link it to the master. So for that, we'll go to the Workflow tab, and under Workflows, we're going to go to the Create Master Server VMware Mapping Workflow. So let's go ahead and click Play, and now we'll get a couple prompts. There we are. So first off, we have the master server that we wish to create a mapping with, and the vCenter. Let's go and choose the vCenter entry that we just added. We also have the ability to create a mapping from the master server directly to a data center as well. So let's go and choose that option too. This way, we will create multiple mappings in one go. We can always rerun the workflow to create more mappings later. Let's click Submit and give it a few seconds. Wait for the little play icon at the lower bottom of the screen to go to a green check. And once it's done, now let's go and take a look at the configuration. Let's expand the configuration for the entry we just created. And now here you'll see that the mapping has been created between that vCenter and the NetBackup master, as well as from the data center back to the NetBackup master. So that wraps up configuration. So now we've created the master server entry as well as the VMware mapping. Now, there's also one other thing that I would like to share. We have a configuration check workflow. This workflow will allow you to check the entire configuration, whether it is for one master server or multiple master servers. I'm going to skip running it, and let's go right into protection. So now that we have configuration out of the way, let's dive right into protection. So I'm going to open vRealize Orchestrator and go into my library, and from there select Workflows. Let's go ahead and select the NetBackup workflows. Let's type NetBackup. And once that's done, let's go and also type in VMware. Okay. Let's choose workflows as well. So now we have the workflows that we imported from the plugin. I'm going to go into a full VM protection now, which basically is choosing the Protect VMware VM with NetBackup workflow. So go ahead and click Run on it. And this now allows us to go and choose the virtual machine. So let's go down into the data center, pick a data center, and then find a VM inside the data center. Let's choose London for now, click Select, and this is going to query NetBackup and list all the protection plans that are available. So let's go and select Daily, and that's pretty much it. Let's go click Run, and this will add London 100 to the protection plan. Let's wait for the workflow to complete, and that's about it. It's complete. Now, let's go and do a restore. Restoring a VM is equally easy, so let's go right back where we were. In our library under Workflows, we're going to choose the Restore VMware VM with NetBackup, and this will allow us to do a full VM restore. So let's go ahead and select Run, and this will now help us choose the VM that we wish to restore. So let's go and browse that, look for that London VM we just protected. So let's go back into the data centers, under London, and look for the VM London 100. There you are. Let's go and select it. Now it's going to query NetBackup to find the available recovery points. So let's pick one of those recovery points, and we have a few choices. Do we want to overwrite the existing VM or restore into a new VM? Well, we need to provide a name for the new VM if that's the choice. We could also have the option to power on the VM after restore, or even remove its network interfaces. Let's power on the VM and let the network interfaces stay. Are you sure? Yes. Let's go. Click Run. This is going to fire off the workflow, and now here we are. Right now it's waiting for the job to start, and then it's going to go into a loop and check the status of that job. I fast forward it, and here's a job has been complete. So it's not every day that we wish to perform a full VM restore. We need the flexibility to perform individual files and folder restores, and that too without having to distribute agent across the VMware infrastructure. So let's go take a look at that. In the VRO Java console, let's go ahead and select the Workflows tab. And under the Workflows tab, we have NetBackup. Expand that. We'll have the Workflows subfolder underneath it. And under VMware, we have some agentless workflows under 8.2 and later. We have a couple of options. One's an option to send the files back to the original machine or to send them to an alternate machine. For now, we're going to send them back to the original machine and choose that workflow and then go up and click play. Now we have a few more questions. Hey, which machine do we want to recover? So let's go and select that from our VMware infrastructure. So as soon as we choose the machine, and then we'll have a few more questions which kind of walk us through where the files needs to be recovered to the same directory or to the same file name and so on. Give it a few seconds here now. Once we discover this machine and the recovery points in NetBackup, the machine name will be populated here. There we go. Let's list the recovery points, and there's a couple, and let's choose the first one. For search, I'm using both so that the search criteria can be searched in files as well as folders. This is the base path for the search. So let's give it a folder name. And I previously backed up a file called Anaconda. So let's go and punch that in over here. So you must be wondering the search. Clicking that Yes Radio button initiates the search. So let's click that. And that's the results from our file catalog. So let's go ahead and click Next now for the remaining questions. We have, hey, what directory do you want to recover to? Let's keep it the original. And we need to provide the OS credentials here. So let's go and punch in the operating system credentials. And once we're done, we'll go ahead and click Next. Recovery options. Do we want to overwrite the file or do we rename the file on restore? We're going to overwrite it and click Next. Some additional recovery options where we choose the backup host or the data store and the transport path. Let's click Next. And the final confirmation, are you sure? Yes or no? And let's go for it. Now that we've clicked Submit, this initiates the workflow. At this point, a restore job would be submitted in NetBackup. And here's our workflow. Basically, it's in a loop checking to see whether the job has been initiated in NetBackup yet or not. It'll stay in this loop and keep checking on the job status. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward over here. The job has been completed. It's denoted by the green checkbox on the left at the bottom. And that's it. Agentless single file restores. Now that we've done that, I want to show you one more thing. Previously, I showed you how we could take a VM from your infrastructure and add it to a protection plan so that it could be scheduled for protection. This time, I'd like to actually show you how to go and do an immediate backup right away. So in our library in VRO, under Workflows, select the Backup VMware VM Now with NetBackup. We commonly call it Backup Now. Click Run and choose the VM that you wish to protect. Let's go browse our VMware infrastructure. Let's go to the data center and let's drill down and select the VM. Let's use the same Red Hat one from earlier. Let's click Select, and now it's going to query NetBackup to find the available protection plans. Here's the listing. Let's go and choose Daily and click Run. Now that fires off that workflow, and here's our job. Now we're basically looking and checking NetBackup to see if the job has been started there or not. Once it's started, it'll continue looping till the job exits. So let's go ahead and fast forward again. And this should, once it's done, it'll pretty much all go to a green status and the job would be marked as complete. That wraps up our segment on the plugin.